Hello there, this is Oliver Dillon-Stout, and right now we are looking at the SGD 213 assignment for SGD, one moment, so I have to go back a page, for SGD N885, um, and this is Oliver Dillon-Stout, and today we will be playing the roguelike game assignment. I'm going to be going over this in a slightly different order of what I think is most relevant to what you are interested in here. So first of all, we're going to show the game functioning, and then we can talk about some of the adjustable parameters within the code, as well as some of the adjustable parameters within Unity. Alright, so again, like I said, we'll go through those main aspects, and then when we get done with that, I'll make this a 15-minute video max, so we will go over some of the code so I can describe it and mostly reiterate what you said to us, but let you know my understanding of what you essentially taught us here. So let's play. So we do have our character, he can move. We do have our enemies spawning, we've got two of them now. Do they pick up speed? Yes, they do. Alright, and upon contact, we do end up getting our character to lose. So, can he shoot to the left? Yes. Can he shoot up? Can he shoot down? Can he shoot that way? Yes. Now, let me show you because it looks like the character is losing even before the enemy quite gets to them. So this is probably a problem with the distance that we have it set to at which the enemy can contact our game player. So anyway, um, this is set pretty easy right now, and we'll go over some of the parameters we can change, such as enemy speed, and maybe fix the collider. I'm not exactly certain, but I have some guesses, so that's the best way to get going with that. So again, we just showed that the hero has proper movement, the orbs shoot in the direction that the user is facing. The hero was at one point in the script spinning as if the orb was making them um, have the velocity hit them. And I had to go through and make some adjustments to the code. I believe velocity was missing, and I had typed vertical incorrectly in one of the earlier scripts. So I'm going to open up my notebook. I'm not certain I'll find that immediately, but I will try to reference that situation once I come across it. But I'm going to go through my notes from the beginning. Um, once we get past the next stage here. So let's see, that would be page 1. My apologies. Alright, so some of the parameters that we could change in the code itself. I'll move the code over to this window and make it max screen. Alright, so from the top, the first parameter that we were able to adjust was part of the hero um, script, and it's at the top just about private float weapon speed 8.0F. Alright. Actually, before we get to that, it's the public float movement speed 3.0F. Alright, and this is the speed at which the hero moves around. Public allows movement speed to take in user input. Adjustments made in Unity parameters will override values in the Visual Studio script, and adjustments are not visible in the script. So, we could change movement speed just quickly in Unity is what this is telling us, or we could change movement speed of our character in the game. So I'm going to really hope our windows are going to be cohesive with my goals here today. So if I go to hero, we go down into this, we see movement speed is still set to 3. We could change this parameter and make our character move faster or slower if we want to make it seem like a fever dream. For now, I'm going to leave that one be. I believe more of the parameters I think we should adjust are going to be related to the enemies. So back to the second section, the private float weapon speed is currently set to 8.f. Alright, and to do this we can adjust the weapon speed. So I would go back to the script, Find that line of code. Again, that's right here, still towards the top. And what if we want the weapon speed to actually be 5? Well, we want to file, save all, move the script over so we can test it in a moment. Go back over here. It appears, there we go. File, save project, just to make sure. Because this won't be too detrimental, but we should see a change in our weapon speed. In fact, I should have made it even more drastic, so let's do that really quickly. Just know I'm not going to pull the window back over, but we're going to make it 1, just to make it drastic and easier to see. And file, save. File, save project. And let's play the game real quick. So let's see. So, yep, we got really slow orbs. I'm going to pause it because that's going to basically demonstrate what we needed. I'm going to switch it back to 8 just so that we can focus on the other parameters next. Alright, so file, save as. No, not save as, sorry. Save and save project. Okay. Alright, so the next parameter that we're able to adjust is technically the enum character stats. I'm not going to go and adjust that though. That's again going to be in the hero script towards the top. Um, if you're going to adjust one of these, you probably want to adjust almost all of them. Maybe not. You could probably switch right and left if you so chose. However, that's probably going to make the user's in-game experience less typical due to the buttons not really making sense compared to usual. So that could be adjusted, but we're not going to adjust it. Alright, so invoke repeating accelerate, and then we have comma 2 and comma 5. Alright, so let me pull that back up real quick. Come on. There we go. So this is going to be in the enemy part 1 video. Essentially, we will initially delay by 2 seconds and then delay until function is called again after 5. So this again is in relation to enemy speed parameters. So let's go ahead and go to enemy controller, find that accelerate and 2. So the 2 again is going to be the initial delay. Let's make that just 1. We're going to have a lot more enemies spawning. And this right here is also a parameter we can adjust real quick just to make it a little bit more intimidating when we are fighting them. Along with that, right beside it, we've got the enemy speed. So let's say we're trying to make a hero level of this game rather than the beginner level. Something you could do is mess with both of these two lines of code, the enemy speed 1.0f, the f related to the float. Alright, so we declare the enemy speed and let's assign that a value. Now, let's not make the game impossible, but 3 is probably still going to make it nearly impossible. But let's go ahead and test it. So I'm going to move this again out of the way. Back in here, we're going to file, save. And to be completely honest, I might not have to save all these different times, but I'm not the most familiar with Unity, so let's just not break the program mid-run. Alright. So, they're faster. Definitely faster. Are they popping up faster? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. It's not taking 5 seconds. Now, unfortunately, we still have the issue where we can stay in one spot and never have anything really go wrong to our character. So, again, changing the value from 1 back to 2 and from 3 back to 5. And enemy speed, sure, we'll keep it at 3 because that was more interesting to me. And I'm going to save, and then we'll go on to our next section. I might end up making this a 20-minute video because it doesn't seem so far like this is quite going to cover everything that we need to display here. So file and file, save project. Alright, so beyond invoke repeating and speed equals 1.0 and then float indicator, there's the line just below that under void accelerate enemy speed plus 1. So this again is a volatile number to adjust, as in it's drastic. Every time the function is called, this will add 1 to speed. Okay, so and essentially, yeah, we can adjust this parameter. So just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, enemy speed equals enemy speed plus 1. Let's make it 2 just to demonstrate. Actually, 3. This might make the game not very fun, but it will display what's changing here. Alright, so file, save project, and let's play it. So this is the accelerate. So I'm trying to stay as far away as possible so we can really see. There it is. And they just start cooking. Alright, that's kind of cool. We're surviving because we're kind of camping in a lame way. So we're going to charge the enemy and end this one out. Alright, cool. So another thing we can adjust the line, which covers, I suppose one thing I can point out in enemy part 2, private void on trigger, that's going to link to the on trigger function in the collider. So let's go ahead and look at that since I'm talking about it. The on trigger, no, not rigid body, box collider. So we have is trigger on our hero. I actually was supposed to be looking at enemy, my fault. And we also have is trigger for our enemy controller. We made sure, since we're talking about triggers, we also have is trigger for our background, as mentioned at one point. So before I get into all the details, let's locate that time.timescale equals 0 parameter that can also be adjusted and discuss what changes that would make. That's going to be at the bottom of the private void on trigger enter 2D collider 2D collision line of code. So it says if collision.gameObject equals name is equal to hero, and then in curly braces time.timescale equals 0. Okay, this could be changed to 0 or 2 to give more chances of life. I believe to the enemy, and that would fulfill the section of the assignment requesting for add life to enemies when an orb hits any enemy, deduct life. So that's my theory, and let's go ahead and test it, and if it's not that, then I will pause the video and find the actual solution. Just one moment while I locate that line, and timescale equals 0. Private void collider collision, destroy collision game object, destroy this object. So this is either related to the hero or the enemy. We're going to make it 3. Again, something slightly more drastic than what we might actually want, just to prove a point. Let's go ahead and file save and file save as. Alright, we're 14 minutes into this video. Sorry, I'm just so used to save as. Okay. So hopefully we can display this, and then I'll spend about 5 minutes discussing. Nope. Okay. So the orb is still just as strong. So we actually don't want that. Can I take multiple hits? Alright, that's what it did. I can take a bunch of hits. In fact, far too many. Alright, so I suppose I do not completely understand that line of code, and I will pause the video here. Alright, so what I've picked up by rewatching the tutorial just now and pausing this is that my misunderstanding is that if we change this 0 to 1, that we would be able to take 1 hit. That does not work that way. This is more oriented towards the actual time flow of the game. I'm still slightly confused on this, however, I definitely understand the fact that changing this from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 doesn't just add the amount of hits I can take from the enemy before the game closes. So, I will have to do some research on how to get the orbs to not completely destroy the enemy. I can tell you right now what's doing that is this same private void on trigger enter 2D collider collision. Essentially, if the orb hits the game object that this script is attached to, it will destroy the orb and it will also destroy the enemy. So to do what's been requested at the end of this, add life to enemies. When an orb hits an enemy, deduct life, and when the enemy reaches 0 life, destroy the enemy. So that's not something we were taught, so I guess I'm gonna go on to YouTube and we will continue this later on. Alright, so we did a few things here to get the game to adjust. I'll show you it running first, and then we can go over a few other adjustments. So 1, 2, 3. The enemies have 3 health each, and then our guy does not get to move anymore once we get contacted. Alright, so how did we do this? A few different failures that I attempted first. I tried to make a brand new script. In fact, it's still right here. Enemy health. We deleted that because that didn't work while we were trying to override the private void on trigger 2D collider collision section. And that didn't quite work. You'll notice some of these lines of code have changed, and that is what allows the orbs to not completely destroy our character. So what was added? Let's go ahead and say public integer max health equals 3. That gives our enemy 3 as a health. Private integer current health is going to remember the health after each time the orb hits it. It's going to have to keep a sort of tracking method for that. Okay. Now, underneath void start, we added the declaration of current health equals max health, so that when we begin, we have 3 health. Um, Below that, we've got the main section. So private void on trigger enter 2D collider 2D collision. Um, you'll notice we changed some of this. So we have a compare tag weapon, which is going to actually, I believe, compare the weapon to the enemy, rather than the normal tag right there. We also used collision instead of game object, I believe right here at the front. And beyond that, we have take damage of 1, stating that we'll take 1 damage each time the orb hits us. The destroy collision.aim game object will still destroy the orb, but not the enemy immediately. And then if the game object is hero, timescale equals 0. That's just something we didn't adjust here. It's the time interpolation. And destroy game object. So then we also have a void take damage, integer damage section where we're subtracting 1 from health each time the interaction between the orb and the enemy takes place. Then we have a display message essentially to the console, and if current health is less than or equal to 0, then the enemy will end up dying, so from 3 to 0. Void die, again, console message displayed, and then destroy the game object. Alright, so that was the code that we had to change for that functionality. Important other factors that you might want me to understand, since this is a 1940-minute video. Let me know if there's anything you want me to iterate back towards you. I don't think you want me to repeat myself for another 10 minutes. Or not myself, but repeat the exact words you said in the YouTube video. So let me know if this was satisfactory. If not, I will go back over it. Thank you.